Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll look at a 7 disturbing side of Reddit's scary stories. And if you like them, you can like, comment, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new videos. I'd also like to ask what you think about me, adding my own opinion after each story. In high school, I was an aspiring actress, which sounds cute until you remember most auditions were traffic, bathroom changes, and adults staring at me like I was a product. My parents hired me an agent, and I had auditions almost every month. That spring, my friend invited me to her birthday weekend, 2 nights of food, movies, and normal teenage bullshit. My agent booked a big audition for that same Saturday, and I picked the birthday party without pretending to struggle. He called while I packed, then called my parents and said I needed to call him back if I still wanted to work together. I never called him, and that was how I quit acting. Through acting, I knew other kids who worked with the same agent, but when I stopped talking to most of them. One kid did not disappear. His name was Bobby, and he kept texting me, asking how I was doing and when I would be back. I ignored him until he wore me down, then told him I was done. He said I was his favorite person to hang out with at auditions and asked if we could still be friends. It sounded sweet. I did not want to be a bitch, so I said sure. Bobby and I live about an hour apart, so I thought we would text and fade out. Instead, he invited me somewhere every weekend. First it was the beach, then a hike, then dinner at a place he thought I would love. I always said no, wrapped in excuses because I was 16 and still thought direct rejection made me mean. We're not dating or close friends, so I was not driving an hour to hang out alone with him. A lot of those plans felt like dates he had already decided I owed him. After enough no's, he asked if he could pick me up from school on Friday because he had a surprise. I remember thinking it could be fun or it could be a lesson. I was dumb enough to say yes. I gave him a side street by school and told my parents a friend was taking me to dinner. He pulled up late, then immediately insulted my neighborhood and talked about how unsafe everything looked. I asked where we were going because the surprise already felt stupid. He dodged it until I pushed, then named a restaurant I actually liked. The drive felt wrong, but not wrong enough to jump out. He watched my reactions too much, talked about auditions like I had abandoned him, and kept asking if I missed everyone. In the back seat, I noticed a blanket and a grocery bag on the floor. None of that meant anything by itself, so I told myself to stop being paranoid. At the restaurant, he made the whole thing feel like a date I had not agreed to. He answered when the waitress asked about the check, and he kept bringing up tiny things he remembered about me, like snacks I liked and something I'd said about hating when people touched my hair. When we finished eating, I checked Uber because I had already decided I was not getting back in his car. I told him he did not need to drive me home. I tried to make it sound casual. I put my phone down on the table while the price loaded, and that was when his face changed. He said he had planned the whole night. He wanted the beach after dinner, a movie at his place, a sleeping bag for me, and breakfast in the morning because he remembered I liked blueberry pancakes. I heard all of this for the first time, and the blanket and grocery bag suddenly made sense. I told him it was not happening, and he acted like I had slapped him. He said he had worked hard on it, that I never gave him a chance, that he drove all that way and paid for dinner. The way he said it made my stomach turn because he sounded like he had bought access to me. I told him my parents expected me home, and he said I could text them. I told him no again, and he started arguing like my answer was only a bad first offer. My hands started shaking under the table, so I pressed them against my thighs and said I was taking an Uber home. Then he grabbed my phone. He did it fast, almost playful, like a kid stealing something at lunch. 1 second it was beside my glass, and the next it was in his hand near his shoulder. He laughed and said I could have it back when I stopped being dramatic. For 1 stupid second, my brain treated it like a prank. Then I remembered I was an hour from home with a boy who had already planned where I would sleep. I shoved back from the booth so hard the table jumped, and I screamed that he had stolen my phone and wanted to kidnap me. Everybody turned at once. Bobby's face went white, and he told me to stop, so I screamed louder. A manager came over, then a waitress, then a guy from the kitchen who looked ready to drag him outside. Bobby tried to laugh and say I was overreacting, but nobody laughed with him. I pointed to my phone in his hand, and the manager told him to put it down right now. He hesitated, and that hesitation told the room enough. The kitchen guy stepped closer, and Bobby finally dropped it on the table. I grabbed it with both hands and did not let go. They took me to a little office in the back. The manager asked what happened, and I told her about the surprise pickup, the beach, the movie, the sleeping bag, the breakfast, and the phone. I kept apologizing for making a scene, which still makes me angry because he should have been the one apologizing. The waitress brought water and napkins, and I realized I was crying only after they were in my hands. The manager said I did the right thing, and the kitchen guy stayed near the hallway until Bobby left. I secretly hoped they would pay for my Uber because the ride was expensive, and I was embarrassed about needing help. They did not, but they had already done enough. I ordered the ride myself and sat there with my phone in my lap while the manager walked Bobby out. Through the little office window, I saw him look back once. He did not look sorry. He looked angry, like I had ruined something that belonged to him. The Uber driver was a woman, thank God, and I hugged my backpack the whole way home. My parents got the full story the next day after the restaurant called my mom. They called the restaurant back, and the manager told them Bobby had been banned from ever coming back. That mattered to me because it meant I had not imagined the threat. Bobby texted me that night before I slept. First he said he was sorry. Then he said I embarrassed him. Then he said he only took my phone as a joke. He said he wanted to make me happy, and I had made him look like a criminal. I stared at the messages with my thumb over the block button, but I did not block him because I wanted proof. He kept texting for months, then years. At first, it was long apologies that twisted into excuses. Then it became updates about auditions, school, and how he hoped I was doing okay. Once he sent a picture of a beach and said it reminded him of the night we never got to have. Some people would say nothing really happened because I got home safe, but he had a sleeping bag ready without asking me. He drove me away from school under the word surprise. He took my phone the second I tried to leave. The last I saw Bobby was when they were taking me to the office. They did, however, tell me that I could go back and eat there whenever I wanted because Bobby was banned from going there. Bobby actually texted me multiple times after that to apologize. I didn't respond. I never blocked him because I was honestly curious to see what he'd keep sending me. Over the next 2 years, he continued texting me updates about his life and apologies for that day at the restaurant. I think he eventually realized I wasn't going to respond ever, and he gave up. I just want to get this off my chest. I was playing RuneScape in like 2005 when my after-school plan was to dump my backpack, lie about homework, and grab the family computer before my brother took it. I was 11, but I told people I was 15 because 15 sounded old enough to matter. I mostly piked, lost gear, talked shit, and waited for one name to light up. Back then, I forgot there were real people behind the chat boxes. The internet felt like everyone was lying together, so I lied too. I had a bunch of people on MSN who claimed to be girls, and I thought that made me cool, even though some were probably grown men being creepy. One of them pulled me in harder than the rest. She was another piker, better than me, meaner than me, and she typed like she knew exactly what would keep me answering. We started a tiny clan and talked almost every day for 2 years. I lied first, and I still hate that part. I said I was 15, and she said she was 16. She sent photos of a girl with short dark hair holding a paper sign that said, "This is actually me." I sent pictures of my older brother because he was 17 and looked closer to the age I claimed. At first, we traded MySpace pages, anime links, dumb quizzes, and forums. Then she sent darker things, like she was testing what I would watch. Rotten.com clips, accident photos, people hurting themselves, and shit I should have closed right away. I watched because she asked what I thought. She asked about my home life after a while. Mine was fine, and I told her that because it was true. When I asked about hers, she said she lived with her dad and he was awful to her. She said he hit her, touched her, screamed at her, and said he would kill her if she told anyone. I was too young to handle that, so I typed useless advice and pretended it meant something. Sometimes she vanished mid-message or said he was outside her door. Eventually we told each other where we lived, not addresses, just city and state. She said when she got her license, she would drive out and visit me. That made me panic because I was 11 or 12 by then, not 15, and the face she knew belonged to my brother. I agreed anyway because losing her scared me more than getting caught. The last normal stretch happened in winter when I pushed back on the videos. I told her I was sick of that shit and did not want more. She called me soft and said people like me only cared when pain stayed imaginary. I snapped that I was tired of being her trash can. Then she kept asking if I would still talk to her if something bad happened. Then she stopped logging into RuneScape. Her green dot stayed gone, and her MSN name stayed gray. I messaged her for days, then weeks, first casual, then angry, then scared. I said I was sorry and that she did not have to send me anything anymore. I said she could just tell me she was alive and I would stop bothering her. I remember crying once because I thought I'd been dumped by someone I had never met. About 3 weeks later, I got a message from her account with nothing but a URL. No hello, no explanation, no smiley, nothing. The link looked wrong, like one of those ugly little sites that barely loaded and made your antivirus freak out. I clicked because I was a kid and because not clicking felt worse. It showed a girl around the age she claimed to be in what looked like a park near a parking lot. For older guys were hurting her, and the camera kept drifting away and snapping back like the person filming had done this before. She had short dark hair and looked too much like the photos from MSN. I kept watching because I thought some answer would appear if I made it to the end. One man turned the camera toward himself for half a second. He looked old enough to be somebody's dad, and he asked if this was my girlfriend. That line hit me so hard I stopped breathing. The girl stopped fighting near the end, and that part has never left me. She went loose, like her body had quit before the man had. They dragged her toward a car, shoved her inside, and the video cut before I could tell if she was unconscious, dead, or too hurt to move. I sat there staring at the black player until my mom called me for dinner. I ate with my family like the world had not just cracked upstairs, and I kept looking at my brother because I had used his face in my lie. I messaged her account for weeks after that. I asked if she was okay, if that was her, if someone stole her password, if the video was fake, if she hated me, if she needed help. Nothing came back. I thought about calling the police, but then I thought about explaining why I lied, why I watched, and why I had no last name or address. So I told myself it was fake. I told myself someone had catfished me with stolen pictures and sent a random video to scare me. I quit RuneScape without making some big decision. I just stopped logging in because every empty friends list felt like a warning. The fucked up part is that I kept checking that site. Maybe I wanted the video gone, or maybe I wanted to see her alive somewhere else. The site was small and filthy, with maybe one new upload every week or two. Some clips had the same shaky camera and the same older guy staying just out of view. About a year after she vanished, the site stopped updating. First the upload stopped, then thumbnails broke, then the whole thing disappeared behind a dead server page. I remember feeling relief and disappointment together, which is disgusting but true. I did not want more videos. I wanted the trail to keep existing because it made me feel like I was doing something. When it vanished, I was left with a memory nobody could verify and guilt nobody had assigned to me except myself. I went back to RuneScape years later, sometime in the 2010s. Nothing was there. Of course nothing was there. The internet keeps stupid things forever and loses the one thing that could tell you whether someone lived. I have told myself every version that hurts less. I was catfished by some fucked up dude. The girl in the pictures was some random teenager whose MySpace got stolen. The video had nothing to do with the person I talked to. The line about a girlfriend was meant for somebody else. I hold on to those versions because the other one is too heavy. The other one says I spent 2 years talking to a real girl who tried to tell me what was happening, and when she vanished, I watched the end without helping. I'm telling myself I was just catfished by some fucked up dude, and I would prefer that be what happened. To think someone I'd spoken to for 2 years was beaten to death on camera fucks with me. It keeps me up sometimes. I was in my car in a parking lot waiting for my brother to return from the store because he had run in for cold medicine, paper towels, and some stupid energy drink he swore he needed before work. I was driving that day, and the plan was simple. He shops, I stay in the car, we go home, we eat something cheap, and he leaves for his shift. I park close to the entrance, close enough to see the sliding doors, and I left my doors unlocked because it was daylight and people were everywhere, and I was careless in that normal way people get careless before something awful happens. My brother took the keys inside because my store card was on the keychain, so I leaned back in the passenger seat and checked my phone. The heater blew low, carts rattled across the lot, and I remember feeling bored, safe, and annoyed by nothing. I heard the driver's door open, and because I thought my brother had come back fast, I didn't look right away. I shifted my legs and started to complain. Then this sour chemical smell hit me, like sweat and cigarettes and wet clothes left in a trunk. I turned and saw a man sliding into the driver's seat, and every normal thought in my head just stopped. He had greasy hair stuck to his forehead, cracked lips, and eyes that moved around without landing anywhere. He pulled the door shut, grabbed the wheel, and leaned forward like he had been driving my car for years. I told him he had the wrong car, loud and sharp, because fear came out sounding like anger. He ignored me and searched the dashboard, the cup holders, and the steering column, like he expected my car to give him something. I told him again to get the fuck out of my car, and that was when he finally turned his face toward me. He looked irritated, like I was a bag left on his seat, not a person sitting there scared. Then he pressed the start button, and the engine came on because I had forgotten the spare fob in my bag. The dash lit up, the vents kicked harder, and the whole thing changed from weird to impossible. He shifted into reverse before I could grab my phone. The car jerked backward hard enough to lock my seatbelt across my chest. My phone hit the floor, and my knees slammed against the glove box. I yelled that he was stealing my car with me in it, but he kept backing out crooked, almost clipping a cart corral. He cranked the wheel toward the exit near the pharmacy side, while a woman loading groceries 2 rows over looked up and froze. I opened the passenger door while we were still moving because noise and open space felt like the only things that might save me. Cold air rushed in. The door swung wide, and the pavement started sliding under me in a way that made my stomach fold. I screamed for help, screamed that he wasn't my brother, screamed for someone to call 911. I don't remember choosing the words, just my throat burning and my hands grabbing anything they could reach. That was when he reached across the console and shoved me. He shoved my shoulder first, then my ribs, then my face when I turned toward him. He was trying to push me out of my own moving car, not calm me down, not shut the door, not explain himself. He pushed like I was trash stuck in the way, and I realized he would rather throw me onto the asphalt than stop driving. My right foot slipped outside and hit the ground for half a second, and pain shot up my ankle so fast I screamed harder. The seatbelt saved me, then trapped me, and I had one hand hooked around the handle above the door while the other clawed at the seat. The open door bounced when the car rolled over uneven pavement, and I could see white parking lines sliding past under my shoe. I kept thinking my head would hit the ground, then thinking I would go under the back tire. It wasn't like a movie where everything moves fast and clean. It was ugly and clumsy and stupid, and that somehow made it worse. A horn blasted behind us. Someone shouted from the store entrance, and another car stopped sideways in the lane to block part of the lot. The man flinched, but he kept trying to drive, hands shaking on the wheel and jaw grinding side to side. My brother came out during that mess, and I heard him before I saw him, screaming my name so hard his voice cracked. He tried to grab the driver's door, but the car lurched forward and someone yelled at him to get back before he got pinned. The man kept shoving at me whenever I screamed too loud, and at one point his hand came near my mouth. I bit him, not because I was brave, but because his wrist touched my face and my body just did it. He yanked back while more people came close enough that he could not pretend nobody saw. My brother slammed both hands on the driver's window and screamed at him to stop. The passenger door clipped a concrete parking block, and the whole car jolted so hard my teeth knocked together. Then he hit the brake, and the car stopped crooked across 2 lanes with the engine running and the passenger door still open. He stared through the windshield, breathing fast, both hands on the wheel, and I thought he was going to floor it into the people in front of us. Instead, he opened the driver's door and stepped out like he had just parked after buying milk. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and started walking between 2 parked cars. My brother lunged toward him, and 2 men grabbed my brother before he could swing. I stayed in the passenger seat because my legs did not trust the ground. My phone was under the pedals, still lit up, but I couldn't make myself lean across the empty driver's seat to grab it. That seat felt dirty now. My brother climbed in from the driver's side and grabbed my shoulders, and I shoved them away before I understood it was him. Someone handed me a phone, and I called 911 even though other people already had. I gave the cross street, the color of my car, and the direction he walked. The police came fast, and my ankle hurt once I stood because my shoe had scraped hard across the asphalt. They caught him behind a closed restaurant near the dumpster fence. They asked if I could identify him from across the lot, and I did. Maybe he was confused, maybe he was high, maybe he thought it was his car, but I know what he did. He opened my door, started my car, heard me scream, and shoved me toward pavement while the car moved. Later, my brother blamed himself for taking the keys inside, and I blamed myself for leaving the doors unlocked and forgetting the spare fob. We argued because both of us were scared and needed somewhere to put it. He kept saying he should have made me come inside, and I kept snapping that sitting outside a store should not be dangerous. That night, I heard the driver's door open every time I closed my eyes. Just that first soft click, because that was the last second everything still felt normal. The next day, an officer told me store cameras caught him trying other door handles before mine opened. That sentence sat in my chest like a weight. The guy looked like he was under the influence of substance, although I'm not too sure. I'm safe now, but I'm still shaken and trying to process it. Please always remember to lock your doors. Sometime in March 2025, I was delivering a catering order for my job to a doctor's office, and my plan was simple. Bring the food in, ask where they wanted it, set it up, take the proof photo, and get back before lunch rush at the store. The order was heavy in that stupid catering way, with hot bags hooked over both arms and paper handles cutting into my fingers. I parked near the side entrance because I expected to be inside for 5 minutes, worrying more about the bags ripping than about anyone around me. The building looked normal, which is probably why I ignored the first bad feeling. It was brick, tinted glass, wet pavement, and people walking in with appointment papers. When an older man opened the outside door for me, I barely looked at him because one bag kept sliding down my wrist. He wore a grayish, dirty sweatsuit, moved with a limp, and looked rough in a tired way, not in a way that made me jump back. He opened the second door into the vestibule, and I told him thank you because that is automatic when someone helps with the door. I did not ask him for anything else, and I did not invite him to walk with me. I headed to the front desk, trying not to drop anything. 3 women sat behind the counter, phones ringing and keyboards clicking, all of them acting like this was normal. Before I could finish asking where the food went, the man reached for the bags in my hands and started tugging one loose. He kept saying, "I hope they tipped you good," like the sentence was stuck in his mouth. I told him I had it, but he pulled again and the handle cut deeper into my fingers. I let go because I was thinking about spilled food and complaints, not about what it meant. Now I know he wanted that little debt hanging over me. One woman pointed at the double doors behind the lobby and said to go through there, all the way to the back on the left. The doors had authorized personnel only written in big red letters, the kind of sign that usually means someone walks you back. Nobody got up. Nobody told him to stay in the lobby. Nobody acted like him carrying my bag was strange. So my brain did what brains do when everyone else stays calm, and it decided maybe he belonged there. He followed me through the doors, still holding the bag like he had earned it. The hallway was narrow, with closed exam rooms and that sharp medical smell that feels clean but not safe. Every time I shifted away, he drifted back into my space. He looked at my uniform, then my name, then my face, and I felt that ugly regret of wearing a shirt that gave strangers my information. At the back, a woman waited near a break room table, and I asked if she wanted everything set up. She said yes, so I unpacked trays, sauces, plates, and napkins as fast as I could. The man started unpacking too, reaching into bags he had no business touching and moving things after I placed them. I kept waiting for the woman to correct him, but she only gave him that tight, polite smile people use when they want weirdness to pass. Then he asked her something I could not fully hear, and she answered, "No, but thank you, sir." Those words made my stomach drop because she did not know him at all. He was not staff, not maintenance, not a coworker, and not some helpful person from the office. He was a random man who had attached himself to me at the entrance, followed me past an authorized only sign, and walked into the back because nobody stopped him. I finished the setup fast, took the picture, grabbed my empty carriers, and turned toward the hallway without doing my usual polite goodbye. I wanted to get ahead of him because he had a limp, and I thought I could reach the lobby first. He was already moving when I stepped out, like he had been waiting for me to try. Somehow he got in front of me, then started walking in a sloppy zigzag that blocked whichever side I chose. If I moved left, he drifted left, and if I moved right, he drifted right. It looked accidental enough that calling it out would make me sound dramatic, and that scared me more than if he had grabbed me. I kept walking because I had already told him no once, and he ignored me. Everyone else had ignored him too. At the double doors, he stopped and looked at me like he wanted me to ask permission to leave. I reached for the handle, and he stepped so close his sleeve brushed my arm. I could smell stale sweat and dirty clothes. I pulled the door open, moved into the lobby, and felt relief for half a second because there were people there. Nobody at the desk said anything, so I headed for the exit while he followed me like we were together. Before I reached the vestibule, he stopped me with, "Let me ask you something." He asked again if they tipped me good. I said I did not know and tried to leave. He stopped me again with the same line, then asked for $3 to get to the bus because he had helped carry the food. At that point, I decided he was probably homeless and pushy because fear likes simple labels. I told him I did not have cash, but I could look in my car and bring some back inside. I said inside on purpose because I did not want him near my car. His face changed fast. He got loud and offended, saying, "Oh, I am 69 years old, and I do not do that," like I had suggested something filthy instead of checking for cash. I tried to explain, but he followed me outside anyway. The cold air hit my face, and I wanted to run so badly my legs twitched. I did not run because he was watching me, and running felt like giving him permission to chase. I unlocked the passenger side, leaned in, and dug through receipts and napkins. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped my keys between the seats. I found a $5 bill and gave it to him, thinking that would end it. He took it without thanks, like it was a fee I owed him, and then he stopped me again with the same damn line. He asked why I was not in school, and that question changed everything. I told him I was not in school and backed closer to the open passenger door. He stepped closer and asked how old I was. I lied and said 26 because I thought if he believed I was older, maybe he would lose interest. He threw his arms into the air, made this loud, shocked noise, and laughed like he had caught me. Then he leaned forward and told me not to get offended. People only say that when they know they are about to say something fucked up. He said he thought I was maybe at least 19. I laughed because my body chose survival before pride, and I said I get that a lot while backing into the car. That was when the routine became clear. He had picked me because my hands were full. He had forced help on me, so I would owe him something. He had followed me into the back where nobody was watching closely. He had asked about tips, money, school, and age, pushing closer each time. He was not confused, and he was not just weird. He was working a routine. I climbed through the passenger side instead of walking around, slammed my knee into the console, dragged the carrier in after me, and pulled the door shut with my whole body. The lock clicked, and that sound felt better than breathing. He moved closer while I scrambled into the driver's seat. I started the engine, put it in reverse, and checked the camera. He was standing behind my car with his phone out, lined up with my plate, holding the phone like he was taking pictures or recording me leaving. I froze with my foot on the brake, because if I backed up too fast, he could claim I hit him, and if I waited, he had me trapped. He shifted just enough for me to move, and I backed out slowly while every part of me screamed to floor it. I drove away, checking every mirror. He had my name from my uniform, my workplace from the logo, my position, my car, my plate, and probably a picture of me looking terrified through the windshield. That is a lot for a stranger to collect in 10 minutes without technically doing anything people take seriously. When I got home, I told my family, and my mom went quiet in a way that made my skin crawl. She said someone she knew had just had a similar experience with a man around the same age and description. We searched local Facebook posts, and it did not take long to find him. Same rough face, same gray sweats, same hunch stance. A few days later, I made a police report because I could not stop thinking about him having my plate. The comments online already made me sick because women said he followed them outside stores, blocked their cars, demanded money after helping them, guessed their ages, and got angry when they tried to leave. I felt stupid explaining it to the officer because it sounds small when you break it into pieces. He held the door. He carried a bag. He asked for money. He stood too close. He took pictures, but the officer did not look surprised. He knew exactly who I meant before I finished describing him. Turns out he's not homeless. He has a whole job and a house. The cop told me this man has been doing this same thing for 20-some years, only harassing women and scaring them into giving him money. People report him all the time, and nothing ever happens to him. I, mid-20s, sometimes go on walks around my neighborhood before bed because my job keeps me stuck in front of a screen until my eyes sting and my head will not shut up. I live in a safe-looking area with trimmed lawns, porch cameras, motion lights, and neighbors who treat stolen packages like real crime. That night, I had worked late, argued over a dumb deadline, eaten cold leftovers over the sink, and still felt wired. So my plan was simple. Walk the familiar loop around the nearby park, burn off the stress, come home, shower, and sleep. The loop is a circular road around a wide field, with a playground on one side, a drainage ditch near the dark bend, and an exit that leads toward a gas station on the main street. I had walked it for almost 5 years, usually between 11 and midnight, and nothing serious had ever happened there except raccoons, sprinklers, teenagers smoking near the bathrooms, and once a guy sleeping in a truck. I checked my phone before I reached the park because I had this little rule about being home before midnight. It was around 11:20, cold enough for a hoodie, and my headphones were dead, so I had no music playing. The first half of the loop felt normal. The field looked pale under the moon. The houses beyond the fences were dark, and the road had that empty, suburban quiet where everything feels calm because everyone else is inside. I slowed near the halfway point because the stars actually looked good, and I remember thinking the walk had been a decent idea. Then the road behind me lit up with headlights. At first I thought a car had turned onto the loop and would pass me. I shifted closer to the grass, the automatic move you make when headlights come up behind you on a narrow road. But the car did not pass. It stayed behind me, slow and steady, and the light threw my shadow out in front of me like somebody had pinned it there. The weird part was the silence, because there was no engine, no music, just tires moving so softly that the car seemed to slide up behind me instead of drive. I glanced back once and saw a low shape, probably one of those electric cars that barely makes noise at low speed. I could not see the driver because the headlights washed out the windshield. I moved farther from the road and lifted my hand a little, that awkward go-ahead gesture people do when they want a car to pass. The car kept crawling behind me, so I told myself the driver was lost, drunk, checking an address, looking for a dog, anything except the thing my body already knew. Then the high beams snapped on, and the whole field jumped into view at once. I stepped farther off the pavement, and those lights followed me. He wanted me lit up. I walked faster, and the car rolled faster. I slowed, and it slowed too. A normal driver would pass, but this person stayed patient behind me. I kept aiming for the next brighter patch of road, but the road ahead curved toward the darkest stretch of the loop. My phone was in my hand, but my thumb slipped on the screen when I tried to unlock it, and suddenly the phone felt like a useless piece of glass instead of help. After a couple more minutes, the car suddenly sped forward without a roar, just a smooth electric rush and a low tire sound. Then it stopped maybe 50 feet ahead, right before the bend. The brake lights glowed red for a blink, and then every light on the car went out. If I had not known that road, I might have thought he had gone around the curve and left. Instead, there was nothing, no tires over the bumps, no red lights near the exit, no movement at all. I stood there with my ears straining, so hard the quiet felt heavy. Then I heard a car door open and shut. Not loud like some movie sound, just one soft clunk that carried across the field because everything else was dead still. That was when the situation stopped being weird and became something else. He had not driven away. He had stopped in the darkest part, killed the lights, and gotten out. I almost kept walking because some dumb part of me still worried I was overreacting. I left the road and headed straight across the field toward the main street and the gas station lights. The grass was damp, and my shoes started slipping every few steps. I kept my phone ready, thumb hovering near emergency call, while I angled toward the streetlights. I was maybe a minute into the field when I saw him coming from the direction of the dark bend. There were no trees there, no bushes, nothing for him to appear from except the place where the car had gone dark. The moon caught him in pieces as he moved, tall frame, dark clothes, one arm swinging harder than the other. Something long and heavy hung from his hand. My brain tried to turn it into a stick for half a second, because the brain will lie when the truth is too sharp. Then it shifted, and the head of it caught a dull piece of moonlight. I ran like my body had finally stopped asking my pride for permission. Behind me, I heard the grass snapping under his steps, close enough to prove he was coming fast too. I tried to call 911 while running, but my thumb missed twice and I nearly dropped the phone. I kept expecting him to grab my hood, or for that thing in his hand to hit my back before I reached the street. When I reached the edge of the field, I stumbled onto the sidewalk and nearly went down on one knee. I turned because I had to know how close he was, even though I was terrified of the answer. He had stopped at the grass line. He stood just outside the strongest streetlight, tall and still, with his face looking flat from that distance. The weapon was clear now. It was an axe, not some huge horror movie thing, but a real hand axe with a short handle and a dark metal head. He just stared at me like I had ruined his timing, and that blank stare scared me more than rage would have. I backed toward the gas station without turning around. He stayed at the edge of the park, axe hanging at his side, watching me move into the light. I ducked near the coolers and finally got 911 on the phone. A man followed me in a silent car, turned off his lights, got out, and chased me across the park with an axe. The police arrived fast enough, but they did not find him or the car. They found tire marks near the bend and footprints in the wet grass, which proved enough that I did not feel crazy, but not enough to catch anybody. I had no plate number because the high beams had blinded me, and I had been too busy trying not to die to memorize details like a perfect witness. I did not walk home. I called my roommate and waited inside the gas station until the car pulled right up to the door. Back at home, I locked everything twice, then sat on the couch with my shoes still on until morning, listening for any quiet car rolling down the street. The next day, the park looked normal, and that almost made it worse. I keep thinking about the version of me that stayed on a loop because I did not want to look paranoid. That version walks into the dark bend, hears the door too late, and probably does not get to write anything afterward. Safe places do not announce when they stop being safe. They look the same right up until some stranger turns off his headlights and waits for you. I've never felt so scared in my life. The most terrifying aspect of this was the fact that his car was electric. No noise was made when he rapidly exited the vehicle other than his mistake of closing his door a bit too loud. If I didn't listen to my gut or make out the sound of a car door closing, I might not be writing this post now. So, let's not meet again random man with an axe who decided to follow me at midnight in the park. Also, if you ever feel any uncertainty or degree of angst in a situation like my own, please listen to that inner voice. Don't doubt it. Sometimes the brain picks up on things we may not have consciously noticed. It was 2015, and I was interning in New York City for a small independent fashion designer who had talent, no money, and a gift for making unpaid labor sound like opportunity. Her office was inside a converted warehouse full of painters, stylists, photographers, and sculptors. I was there because I needed experience and something real on my resume. So my plan that night was simple: finish alterations, help her survive Fashion Week, impress her enough to remember my name, then drag myself home after sunrise. The warehouse looked cool during the day, with concrete floors, exposed pipes, and doors covered in studio names. At night, it turned into a maze that kept breathing after everyone left. The hallways bent weirdly, the lights buzzed, and half the doors had frosted glass or curtains that made every room feel occupied. It smelled like coffee, paint, old fabric, and dust. My boss's office was near the back, past the shared workroom with the big cutting tables. Her show was the next day, so nobody was allowed to act tired or normal. A zipper had busted, 2 hems were wrong, and 1 jacket still needed hand finishing. She and the stylist were down the hall arguing over looks, while I stayed in the shared room because the table gave me space. I had been bent over it for hours with pins between my lips and that dumb intern pride in my chest, like pain meant I belonged. The room was almost silent except for the fluorescent lights and my needle scraping through fabric. Then a man's voice said, "I had been bending over that table all day." My hand froze mid-stitch, and I looked up to see him standing a few feet away in the doorway across from me. He looked late 50s, maybe older, wearing dark clothes and a coy smile that did not reach his eyes. His eyes moved over me before they landed on my face, slow enough that my body understood before my brain did. I gave him the automatic nervous laugh women use when something feels off, but we're trying not to make it worse. I told him it was fashion week, and I had a lot to finish by morning. He asked if I was a fashion designer, and I straightened up like an idiot at an interview. I told him I was trying to be still in school, first real internship, all that eager resume bullshit. While I talked, he stepped closer in small pieces, just enough that the room started feeling smaller. Then he asked if I had a portfolio, and in that, building the question sounded normal. I had once met an Emmy-winning costume designer there, so every stranger felt like a possible connection. I pulled out my phone and showed him photos from my senior thesis, a collection about entanglement and confinement. I used wrapped fabric and straps that pulled across the body like sheets twisting around you when you cannot sleep. There were bondage references, yes, but it was not porn and it was not an invitation. I started explaining too much because I wanted to sound serious and because I was still stupid enough to think he cared about the work. Then I realized his face had moved close to mine. He was not looking at the screen anymore. Maybe he never really had been. He hovered beside me, close enough that I felt his breath touch my cheek. He murmured that I was cute, and the word hit me like a warning. I froze so hard it felt like my bones locked. I wish I could say I shoved him, yelled, or grabbed the shears on the table. I did none of that. I stood there holding my phone, calculating how far my boss was and whether anyone would hear me if I screamed. Before I moved, he leaned in and pressed his mouth against my cheek. It was slow, wet, open, and deliberate. He stayed there long enough for me to smell stale coffee on him. Then he put his mouth near my ear and whispered that he had duct tape in his office, and we could have a little fun if I wanted. He said it softly, like he was offering me a chair. That was when the whole room changed. The tables, the racks, the fabric, my portfolio, none of it mattered. I was alone in a warehouse maze with a man telling me he had tape nearby. I said no, but I hate how I said it. I said I had way too much work to do. I thanked him because some broken survival part of me still believed politeness might keep him calm. I had been touched without permission, threatened in that slick, deniable way men use, and I still softened my voice like I was turning down coffee. He chuckled, said he was down the hall if I changed my mind, then walked away. I stood there listening after the steps faded because I did not trust the quiet. My cheek felt wet and dirty, and my phone screen had gone black in my hand. The garment on the table looked ridiculous, like I had been risking my safety for a crooked hem nobody would remember. My hands shook so badly I could not pick up the needle, and then tears came before I decided to cry. I backed away from the table and went to my boss's office without fully running. The hallway looked longer than it had 10 minutes earlier, and every closed studio door looked like a hiding place. I told her and the stylist that a man had come into the shared room, asked about my work, kissed me, and said he had duct tape in his office. I said every part clearly, even though my voice shook. They looked at each other first, not at me. That glance said inconvenience. Not tonight. Please do not make this messy before the show. My boss asked what I had shown him, and I honestly did not understand the question. I said my thesis work because he had asked for my portfolio. She said I should not show that kind of work to strange men, especially not pieces with bondage references. I wanted my boss to storm down the hall, call the building manager, call security, do anything that proved what happened was real. Instead, she looked at the unfinished garments and said we had a show tomorrow. I asked if we should tell someone, and she said she would mention it to the building manager in the morning. The man had said he was down the hall with duct tape, and the response was to maybe bring it up after the clothes were done. So I went back to the table because I was young, broke, scared, and still desperate not to seem difficult. They left the office door open, like that counted as protection. I worked for another hour with my eyes jumping to the doorway every few seconds. Pipes became footsteps, the elevator gate became him returning, and fabric sliding off the table made me flinch so hard I stabbed my finger and bled onto the lining. Nothing else happened that night, which almost made it harder to explain later. There was no chase, no rescue, no clean proof. There was only me sewing until dawn with a dirty cheek, a shaking hand, and a boss who cared more about hems than whether some creep in her building was hunting interns. Morning came, people arrived with coffees and garment bags, and the warehouse turned back into a normal creative workspace. What still gets me is how planned it felt. He did not just lose control because he saw a young woman working late. He watched, picked a moment, asked the right question, moved closer, touched me, and tested whether I would make noise. Then he told me exactly where the duct tape was, like he wanted the image to stay with me. That was not flirting. That was rehearsal. It has been over a decade, and I still remember his face better than I remember some people I actually liked. Sometimes I pass old warehouse buildings and catch that mix of paint and coffee and overheated dust, and my body reacts before my brain does. I never learned his name, his office, or whether he forgot me by breakfast. Maybe he did it to other interns, other students, other girls trying to be polite because their careers had not even started yet. The part one cannot let go is the thought that he may have watched me before he spoke. He might have stood in some doorway for 10 minutes or an hour, deciding whether the warehouse was empty enough. He might have seen me there other nights with headphones in, been overwork, believing ambition was the thing I needed to survive. I will never know, and that not knowing is its own kind of rot. But yeah, creepy warehouse dude, let's not meet. I always sleep with one eye open, but I haven't used a sleeping aid to this day because of what happened that night. I was 17, living alone with my mom in a cheap second-floor apartment over a closed video store, and the plan was just to sleep like normal people for once. She had work early, I had school, rent was late, and neither of us had energy for another fight about money or my grades. My mom took heavy sleeping pills because her nerves were wrecked, and I had insomnia so bad I sometimes missed 2 nights straight. I did not want her pills, so I used the natural crap instead. Valerian, melatonin, magnesium, and tea that tasted like boiled weeds. The apartment was small enough that every sound traveled. The front door opened into a tiny entrance. My mom's room sat right beside it, and my room was down the hall. My bedroom had a stupid layout because I had more junk than space, so I used a tall shelving unit to split the room. You had to walk in, turn around the shelves, and reach my bed at the far end, so the room made a crooked U shape. Back then, I thought it gave me privacy. Now I think I built a blind corner for somebody else. I was also a weird kid about weapons, not in a cool way, more like a bored teenager with bad nerves. I had a machete from helping my uncle clear brush, and my mom hated seeing it beside my bed. In Canada, most people do not keep guns around unless they hunt or have the right papers, so you trust locks, neighbors, and luck. We had a cheap door, neighbors who minded their business, and luck that had already been stretched thin. Nothing warmed me that night. My mom took her pill with tea and told me not to stay up playing games, even though she could barely keep her eyes open. I snapped back because I was tired and 17, then felt guilty as soon as her door shut. I checked the front door and made sure the chain was hooked. I remember pulling the door twice. The lock held, the chain clicked, and I went to my room thinking the biggest problem of my life was being tired at school again. The supplements hit harder than usual because I had barely slept the night before. My arms went loose, my thoughts slowed down, and the ceiling started drifting above me. I heard the fridge kick on, the radiator knock, and people laughing near the bus stop outside. My phone slipped between the mattress and the wall, and I remember thinking I should grab it before it fell farther. I didn't. My body felt pinned down in that heavy way where you know sleep is taking you and you cannot fight it anymore. I do not know how long I was out because the next memory comes back in broken pieces. I heard a voice before I opened my eyes. It was not a shout, not my mom calling, and not the television bleeding through the wall. It was low and close, like somebody talking through cloth. At first, my brain tried to fold it into a dream because that is what a drugged, exhausted brain does. Then the voice came again, and I understood it was inside my room. I tried to move, and nothing happened right away. That was the first real terror before I even understood what I was seeing. My tongue felt thick, my chest felt slow, and my eyes opened only halfway. Through the gaps in the shelving unit, I saw a person standing near my bedroom door. He was tall, dressed dark, and leaning forward like he was trying to see around the shelf without stepping closer. He was not confused, not calling for anyone, not looking for a bathroom or a light switch. He was standing there and talking to me while I lay in bed. The words still mess with me because I never caught them cleanly. I remember the rhythm more than the sentence, soft at first and harder at the end, like he repeated something and waited. For years I told myself it was nonsense, maybe some addict muttering because he'd broken into the wrong place. But there is one version my brain keeps playing when I'm tired, and in that version he says my name. Not loud, not surprised, just calm, like he had been practicing it. I hate admitting that because fear can lie, but fear also burns things into you. The first thought was stupid. There was a tall man in my room. Then the rest crashed in. I lived with my mom. My mom was asleep. There was no man in our apartment, and there had never been any reason for one to stand in my room at night. The sleep fog cracked, and adrenaline poured through me so hard it hurt. I jerked upright, slammed my shoulder into the wall, and sucked in air like I had been underwater. The man stopped talking. He froze like someone whose plan had gone wrong. My hand went down beside the bed before I even thought about it. I did not reach for my phone, even though that would have been the same thing. I reached for the machete because some animal part of me knew a phone would not keep him away. My fingers closed around the handle, and the blade dragged against the floor with an ugly metal scrape. That sound changed everything. The man snapped backward, turned so fast his hip hit the shelving unit, and knocked old game cases across the floor. Then he moved toward the hallway without another word. I came off the bed half naked, barefoot, dizzy, and shaking so hard the machete wobbled in my grip. I ran around the shelf and slammed into the doorframe because the supplement still had my legs working like wet rope. He was already down the hall. I saw his back for maybe 2 seconds under the yellow kitchen light. Dark jacket, dark pants, no backpack, nothing in his hands. He reached the entrance and went through it like he knew the route. That was when I saw the front door. It had not been opened. It had been wrecked. The frame had split near the lock. The chain had ripped out of the wall, and the door hung crooked like broken furniture. He had forced his way in hard enough to tear the hardware loose, and I had slept through it. For 1 second, I wanted to chase him down the stairs. I wanted his face, his voice, maybe his blood if I'm being honest, because fear turns you into something ugly when it finally gives you a weapon. I took 2 steps before my mom slammed back into my mind. Her bedroom was right beside the front door. He had passed her room first. Her door was closed. My door had been opened. That detail hit harder than the broken lock because it meant he had not stumbled around grabbing whatever he could find. He had walked past the easiest victim in the place and gone straight to me. I ran into her room expecting something I still cannot name. She was asleep on her side, breathing through her mouth like she had not heard the world split open 6 feet away. I shook her hard, probably too hard, and she woke up angry until she saw the machete in my hand. Then she saw my face. I dialed emergency services while she kept asking what happened, and I kept telling her someone had been inside, Someone had been in my room. Someone had broken the door. Saying it out loud made it sound less possible, which somehow made it worse. The police arrived after what felt like half the night. They checked closets, looked under my bed, and stepped around the broken game cases. One officer asked if I was sure I had not taken anything stronger than supplements, and my mom snapped at him before I could. They said there had been break-ins nearby. Like that explained why this man went straight to my bedroom and talked to me in the dark. I asked what the fuck we were supposed to do without a working front door in the middle of the city. One officer shrugged and said they would drive by again before morning. That was it. A drive-by, a report number, and good luck with your ripped open home. After they left, my mom wanted to stay awake, but the meds kept pulling her head down, and she started crying because she could not force herself to stay present. I told her to go back to bed and locked her bedroom door from the inside, even though the lock was cheap. I dragged the couch toward the entrance, sat facing the ruined door, and kept the machete across my lap until sunrise. Every sound in the building turned into him. A pipe clicked and my grip tightened. A car door slammed outside, and I stood up. When the sun came up, the details got uglier instead of easier. Nothing had been stolen. My mom's purse sat by the kitchen with cash inside. My console was in plain view. The old laptop stayed on the table. The cabinets were closed. The bathroom door was closed. My mom's door had been left shut, and my bedroom door was the only one open. The muddy print near my doorway pointed inward, not around the apartment. He had entered, gone to my room, and stood there long enough to speak. That is not a normal burglary. I did not know what it was, but it was not a normal burglary. We moved 3 months later to a smaller place with a better door, and I stopped taking every supplement immediately. A neighbor told us he had seen a tall man outside the building 2 nights before it happened, looking up at the windows from near the store sign. Maybe it was the same man. Maybe it was not. I have no proof, and that is the part that never stops working on me. People like clean endings where the intruder gets caught or turns out to be some confused addict with the wrong address. We got none of that. We got a case number, a repaired door, and a memory that changed every room afterward. So let's just say that putting a weapon next to my bed has become a new tradition whenever I move somewhere new. I do not brag about it, and I do not think it makes me tough because the truth is I got lucky while half sedated and scared out of my mind. If my hand had landed on my phone instead of that handle, or if the supplements had dragged me deeper under, I might have stayed there while that man finished whatever he came to do. And though my sleep has gotten much better, it's not very hard to wake me up.